All right, peace and love.
Telling us how many people that they killed. Over half the brothers and sisters in Africa are dead. So when he was saying that by him being in the part of that missionary thing, and you know that missionary thing was the people that killed up half the people. He knew what he was talking about. But we didn't get it at that time. He said, there ain't that many black people left in Africa. You see. It's amazing. You see what I'm saying? And so that's very interesting. So we understand certain things that's actually going down. You know. So now, let's deal with some other things at this particular time. I don't want to deal with this. Let's see what we're dealing with here. Yes. We have also said that now just about everything you see in Hollywood is either a robot or either something that's selling out. Take for instance, Restless Nights, they got scared of him when he did New Jack City. He did The Road Too Strong. So they went in and did what they had to do to him, and he ended up playing a drag queen. Right. Blair Underwood produced a movie where he played a black Jesus Christ. Never got out in the public. As a result of that, they say, well, we got to stop you. And so now Blair Underwood is now doing things where he's playing a mass murderer in the movie Just Cause, as well as he's beating down the black man in these new cop movies. You see what I'm saying? In these new cop movies. These are things that they're doing and all and stuff because it's real serious now that in order to remain in doggone Hollywood, you got to basically sell out. So what we're telling you that there's no movie stars out there very healthy. You see what I'm saying? That you might think. All of them will do several things. It's like Angela Bassett, the strong black woman, but she's in Strange Days and she's tonguing a white boy down. You see what I'm saying? And like I told you, like I said before, Strange Days was nothing but the 1995 movie that come out a year before Tupac's death to set up to announce the Tupac's death. If you look at Strange Days, the movie with Angela Bassett, you will see in the actual movie that it was that the end of the world was fought around the murder of a rap star. This controversial rap star. And the end of the world was getting ready to have social unrest and everything else at this particular hot spot at the end of the world, and was all around this rap star. You understand what I'm saying? And 1 year, that came out in fall 1995. Fall 1985, fall 1995, fall 1996, Tupac gets killed. Almost the same time of the release date of the movie the year before. Remember I told you how they released What's Love Got to Do with It, of abuse? And a year later, you got the OJ thing. You see? This time, a year later, after Strange Days, you have the Tupac murder. All set up. Everything is set up off of the movies. And they survey to see how conscious you are by telling you the truth in the movies. like the movie Long Kiss Goodnight, where they, in the movie they admitted that they blew up the World Trade Center and blamed it on a doggone Arab. In the movie. You see what I'm saying? And blamed it on an Arab. They put it, everything is in the movie. Even the brother DiBernardo, what's his name? Yeah. Said that, you know, you can't sleep on the movies. Which I viewed his last tape, and I gotta say, and when I viewed the tape and all, the brother is hot. He's on it. You see what I'm saying? He's on it. I just say that also too that everything that's going on the physical part, there's an inward part. So we talk about the grid lines and we talk about all these hot spots of energy. Those hot spots that pose as energy in the days when the vibration was not as high, you had to go to hot spots for illumination. Now those hot spots are right here in your body, and you can tap into all of that. You see what I'm saying? So also the Hale-Bopp that's coming, this particular comet, is not only an indication of something that's coming from the outside that he's going to talk about tomorrow, but it's also stuff that's coming on the inside of you. So anytime you see some stuff that's going on in the cosmos, it is only a sign that's projecting outwardly what's opening up inside of you, because inside of you is the real universe, and that's only the holographic universe. This whole physical world is a hologram. Michael Talbot's book, Holographic Universe by Michael Talbot, which is quantum physics. This is only an illusion. And the problem that we have is mistaking illusionary phenomenon as reality. In the Gnostic scripture, they say if you say that heaven is in the sky, then the birds will get to heaven before you. If you say that heaven is on the ground, then a dog will get to heaven before you. But if you say that heaven is within, then you know, brother and sister, that you have attained the knowledge of where heaven is, and you will obtain the knowledge of self. You understand what I'm saying? So it's a holographic universe. And that's a quantum physics book, Holographic Universe, Michael Talbot, who is a quantum physicist. You see what I'm saying? Very key at that particular time to understand that particular information that's actually going on at that particular time. You see. So let's go with some other stuff. Hail Bob. Let me get some things. Ginger, where's? Yeah, here's the picture of it. Here's a picture of it. And all. Now, if you notice in the picture, when they show the blown up picture, you will see, this is the picture that you would see in your normal sky. This is the magnified picture from the Hubble telescope. If you notice it, you will see light around a black dot. So the mystery of this is, if you study the characteristics of what is coming based on it being objectively and outside of you, you don't get the mystery. The mystery is what is coming is an ignition of the igniting of what? The black dot, which is coming to which is igniting in most of you anyway. You see what I'm saying? So that's one of the mysteries behind the Hale-Bopp is not so much the white boy is concerned for the simple fact that he understands the outer manifestation of it, but he's also concerned because he understands that the inner manifestation of it means that in actuality us getting our stuff together. You see what I'm saying? Us getting our particular stuff together at that particular time. You see. So that's very interesting, and that's what you must try to understand what's actually going on at this time about the Hale-Bopp, and this particular picture actually shows this. Now, here's the other information on it. I found a direct link to the Hubble telescope. Not only that, but it has pointed directly at the comet Hale-Bopp. The program was running in some kind of analysis, taking direction and notes, the projection of the path of the travel, etc. After realizing that I had observed, I started searching and came across an email data that trail that led to the directory of the office of the Pope himself. That was discussed. That was discussed. It says that, but I cannot know. Over the next 2 weeks, I began to uncover. Is very aware of the existence of the companion of the companion, and is very worried about it. That's talking about Hale-Bopp. I began to copy the files and the pictures that were present at the terminal, and I went and I found a report from the United Nations to the Vatican, as well as a report to NASA regarding their concerns. It was very obvious to me that a great many people and entities knew of the companion and are doing their very best to keep it quiet, very quiet, as the next part of my story tells. I have found another file that I wanted to look at, but it was independently encrypted. At the time I discovered it. I had already been outlined at the terminal for the same time, and I decided to copy the file and also to decode it at my leisure. And as I was leaving the lab, I was approached by two of the Pope's top allies and was asked to meet with them later in the evening. See, I got to slow down when I'm talking because I'll be going real fast. So I didn't feel comfortable about the situation, but I agreed, and I told them indeed that that I needed to take a shower, and I would join them later. And I haven't been back to the Vatican ever since. Now, this is the end part of that. I found out about a week later through some old friends that the contacts that had contacted me had been placed. Excuse me. Let me slow down. That the contacts that a contract had taken out on my life. 2 days later, my mother and father were killed in a car crash in France. 3 days after that, my brother and sisters was killed, and in a single-engine plane went down on the east coast of the United States. I have been on the run for a very long time, and I am still trying to decode the files that I have in my possession. Approximately 10 copies have been distributed to my friends and in the field in an event that I should disappear, in case of an event that I should disappear. I do not fear for my life, as I am very adept, that I am very adept at not being found. However, I believe that the world needs to know of the information that I have, and I would be willing to share all that I have with you, Dr. Bell. Because, see, Dr. Bell is this particular guy that's on the internet. What's his name? Art Bell.
Oh, yeah.
That deals with all this particular stuff. You need to understand that your life could be in danger if you were to go public with what I have gave you. I apologize for being so vague, and I feel it's necessary to point this out at this time. If you would like the information, it just tells you that you can write a letter and all this kind of stuff here. But basically, it's talking about, he's telling this to the Dr. Bell. But basically now, the key to this particular thing is how we get caught up in a lot of things is this particular information that is actually coming that they're talking about here, that's got this so-called cat's life in danger. This particular information is coming. Is anytime you see anything like comets, conjunctions like the Sigil ceremony, the white buffalo, there's been several things that's been going on. It's only an indication of what is going on the inside of you. That's the difference. That's the difference between actually looking for something to come. The stuff that's coming is in you. That's the reason why they have been killing you for the last 10 years. Because they're trying to stop the rise of the Messiah. And the Messiah who is to come is in all of us. You understand where I'm coming from here? So now that's the real mystery of the actual comet is the entities that a hologram is going to give you this to keep you from looking within. And that's the real mystery of it. But I think Brother DiBernardo is going to talk about this tomorrow, right? Right. He's going to also talk about this tomorrow, so you all catch that particular lecture where he's going to go into that particular hell-box situation also, too. And if you want to know a little more about it, you need to get that particular tape. You have any of those tapes?
Yeah.
You need to get the tape of the last time he spoke here, right?
Yeah,
the 22nd of November, because it is a outstanding tape. Did you all see the tape?
Yeah.
Well, anyway, we'll view it.
Right.
What you call it and all,
Okay, we got about 10 more minutes here.
Okay, so what we're going to do is on this tape. Okay, I see what you're saying. Okay, so let's let's deal with some things here. Let's see here. All right. Okay. Both Africa, America, Haiti, Bosnia is forms of where the white boy believes that the Christ is going to rise. But the first Christ energy is going to rise right here in America, because that's based on where the Gnostic, but the the Hermetic scripts say it's going to rise, which when Asclepius, who is Imhotep, is talking to Tahuti, which is a conversation going on with him in the spiritual realm, and they give him the history on how Egypt is going to fall and how everything that once was great and divine in Egypt will become a big graveyard, and how in the future the wise man will be considered, will be treated like a common criminal, and the impious man will be revered as noble, which is the European. But he says, but there will be an extremities of Egypt built towards the west, and from that the group of people will rise up. The new Egypt, we understand, is the United States, because the United States capital is built like Egypt. Well, it goes further than that, because they couldn't stop just then, because we have history of Atlantis, and so Atlanta now has Syriac architecture based on the article out of the British Museum, how to build your temples with obelisks, temples and pyramids. Now Atlanta is the new city of Atlantis, based on the article of the British Museum. You can get that article in the book Ancient Egypt, The Serious Connection by Murray Hope, a must-read book that was out of print since 1992, that I've been trying to tell people to get, but you couldn't get it. Now the book has been re-released this summer, Element Books. Now it's called The Serious Connection. The first one was Ancient Egypt, The Serious Connection, but it's called The Serious Connection. It was a paperback book at first. Now it's a hardback one, but they enlarged the print, because it's kind of bad to read stuff in small print now. You know, you tend to put it down. Murray Hope. In her chapter in the back of the book called Syrian Heritage, the article is in the British Museum that Napoleon dug up out of Egypt. Just in the British Museum to this day, she prints it in the article. She prints the actual article. There's another book that she got it from called Thrice Great Hermes that's now out of print, the $50 book, 3 books in one. But she prints it in the back of her book, which, The Serious Mystery was a great book, but I enjoyed her book even better, because she has a whole section called The Gods and Goddesses of the Serious Connection, of the Serious, and she got a whole section called The Goddesses of the Serious. Also, she has a section called Lion Power. But in the section called Syrian Heritage, she talks about that article, and they took that same article, and from 1987 up to now, they built Atlanta based on the Syrian architecture, which is after Atlantis. After Atlanta, but now that book is back out. Ancient, which is a must-have. Also, her book called Atlantis, Myth or Reality, a must-have by her also too. So what we're going to do is, how much time we got? I'm going to talk about this demiurge. Demiurge is a group of creator spirits that was created by this lower entity called a Daldabroth that's posing as God, that most people worship. This jealous God that most people worship, that you call the Supreme Being. A book that you need to get on, that little small book called Gods of Eden. And in that book, they talk about the Supreme Being. Also, you can get the tape on the Shek. You still have that tape? The Shek talk, the Supreme Being. Now, don't think this is some little old stuff that the white man made up, because it's all documented also in the Gnostic scriptures. Especially if you get this book, Jung in the Lost Gospels. Jung in the Lost Gospels, they got a chapter in here called The Prince of the World, the Myth of the Tyrant Angels. The Tyrant Angels. That's that guy called Adalabroth. The Myth of the Tyrant Angels. And that particular one is this particular entity that's posing as God that people worship. But he is not God. He is a subordinate God. He is a subordinate God that is in the place of Ra, or in the place of the Most High. You understand? So, but he has a group of people called the demiurge, And the demiurge is this particular his angels or his lesser angels that is now coming and wreaking havoc on the world, and they're walking in the bodies also too. They're walking in the bodies. Now, at this particular time, they are really interested in killing a lot of the people that they think that have the potential of becoming Christ. And like I said, but we have recognized that the ones where the Christ energy is going to be the divine spark that will ignite the rest of the black people on the continent is coming right here in the United States, because the United States being the last empire standing. And the black person that's here is probably the most oppressed because he has no culture whatsoever. So now, also, like I said, that he's also a person that is, he's a person that is, the tyrant angel is also trying to take places like Haiti, Africa, Bosnia, and the United States. Yoo-hoo! Telling you, in the United States. Now, the reason that I say Bosnia is because the last element of the black people in Europe that was left behind in Bosnia. The Bosnian War was fought, and they let it go on for 6 years because they was trying to kill off the last element of the black Bosnians. A group of black people that were known as the Cathars or the Cathars, which were black people that worship Gnosticism. The Cathars is also, you can read a book called The Christian Tradition in Europe. The Christian Tradition in Europe. So you can get it it's on sale at a lot of these stores now. Christian, especially at Barnes and Nobles. Christian Tradition in Europe. And the name of the group is the Cathars. There's a new book out called The Bloodline of the Holy Grail, where they trace the bloodline of Christ up into so-called Europe, but in actuality they miscalculated because it's here in the United States. It's called The Bloodline of the Grail. But the Cathars, and that last element in Bosnia that was black people, this is the reason why they had the war, to kill them off. They also had a war in Russia. What's the Herzegovina? What is the name of the place? That particular one was to kill off the last remaining elements of the black Russians that were there up until this day. That's why they let the war go on for 6 years and they only brought troops up in their last year. That is because they made sure that they killed the rest of those black people off. The Vietnam War was to go and to kill a lot of the black people off in Vietnam. You see what I'm saying? These wars is being fought is to neutralize places that they can kill small pockets of black people, but they know ultimately they couldn't kill them in the United States, but they can somehow contain them in the United States. And in Africa, they just basically control the whole continent. But they made sure that they tied up loose ends. They killed all the black people off in Bosnia. You see what I'm saying? That's very key that you understand that particular part, because they are trying to kill the Christ. And so most of your wars from the 1900s on up has been to try to kill the Christ off. That's why we fight in most of the wars also too. And that was the reason why. Also too, like I said, that the reason why you actually have to, they integrated you into the society basically and gave you corporate jobs from over the last 20, 25 years is because they used to steal designs and ideas and inventions from you illegally. So they had a way to legalize that. It's called a job. You go and get your little $30,000, $40,000 a year, but you give up all your hard-earned secrets to these corporations, and they can get your designs and your ideas for free. It's called a job now. Before they used to steal it from you just basically by just utter meanness, but now they legitimized it, and it's called a job. And so they had to bring the black person, the creative mind of the entire world into the workforce at that particular time. Very key that you understand that. you know. And so there was those particular places were hot spots around the world that they had to go in and neutralize, and Bosnia was one of those particular people. But when you read the book, The Hidden Tradition of Europe, be sure to note, the Christian tradition of Europe, be sure to note those are black people that they were talking about. You see what I'm saying? Those were black people that they were also talking about. Remember that. Okay. Another word for melanin in Gnosticism is akamith. Akamith. Remember that name. Let me spell it out for you so you'll know. Anytime you read stuff on, it's also dealing with the Divine Mother. It's called the Lesser Sophia, but it's also called akamith. Let me see if I ACHAMO akamith. EKHAMOTH, but the real word is ACHAMTH. Akamith is the name for another name for melanin. Another name for melanin is Adamus. ADAMAS. Adamus is also a name for melanin in Gnosticism. Also, is another name for I might give you some other names before we let out. I might give you some other names because I ended up being able to copy down this lost list that I had on the different names, over 300 names of melanin and all, you see. So I'll give you some of those names before we leave out. So therefore, when you see several names in books, you'll know they're talking about melanin also too. So remind me to give you some of those before we get out of this particular lecture tonight. Okay. There are Hebrew letters that's in the Egyptian temples and in papyrus that the Egyptologists have hid this information. So the Hebrew letter was originally an Egyptian script. The Hebrew letters as well as the Sumerian letters and all. So in actuality, it also tells you that the Hebrews were Egyptians, a branch of Egyptians that was in slavery, but a branch of Egyptians that made a pilgrimage out of Egypt and all out of Hemmitt also too. And so that is something that you actually need to understand. The word Hebrew is a modified word of Heru. Hebrew. It's a modified word of Heru. As a word, and also Heru becomes Jehu, or Jehu, also in the 2 Kings, I think. Also, they talk about Jehu. Also, you'll see in 2 Kings, also in the Bible, also. That's very interesting that you need to understand that. Okay, the Last Supper, two things. The Last Supper was, in the Osirian drama, it's a picture of when Osiris was invited to go to a party with his brother Set-Typhon, and the co-conspirators killed him and put him in the chest. That was also the Last Supper, but there's two Last Suppers. Also, the Last Supper also was, in fact, a supper of the Last Supper was when we meet up on another realm. There's going to be a great big party that's going on. You can get this particular information in E. Wallace Budge's book, this small book called Egyptian Religion. And in there it will be dealing with a whole section that will list all these foods and all these things when we meet up with the other brothers and sisters who have gone on and we rise into our thing. And when we meet up with the original people that fell to the lower realm, and when we meet back up into the hereafter, there's going to be one great big feast and party. And they have in the papyrus, they list all the foods and the wines and everything else that we would just be partying and stuff with. Partying on the mothership and all on the Sectec boat or the Actec boat. So that particular information is in E. Wallace Budge's book, Egyptian Religion. Also in his little book, the Egyptian Heaven and Hell, they make mention of it. But they make mention of it. And so, now the Egyptian Heaven and Hell is the section of the Book of Coming Forth out there called the Book of Gates. And the Book of Gates is the book that the Hebrews took and got their hell story from 100 years before Jesus Christ was born, or before the Christian era. Sheikh Anthony Duat mentioned that right before he died at the King Center down in Atlanta, Georgia. So that book, the Book of Gates, is also talking about the different levels of the dimensions of the mind, and that's what the whole hell thing is, and it had nothing to do with you burning in hell, which is a metaphysical concept of hell, and what it was talking about, which was actually the burning hell, which you know that they used to burn the bodies of the Hebrews based on the travels when a certain amount of people would die, and that was just a form of creation. They call it the hell, but it had nothing to do with some you burning in hell. But on the other hand, but in that particular book, E. Wallace Budge's book, The Egyptian Heaven and Hell, was the original book of Gates in which they made the hell story from. You can get that particular book for $6 now, $6 or $7, The Egyptian Heaven and Hell by Budge. And that's the Book of Gates. Also, you should find the Book of Gates, a Book of Gates would also be in the book Ancient Egypt, From Fetish to God in Ancient Egypt by E. Wallace Budge, as well as a form of the Book of the Dead has a form of the Book of the Gates also too. Now, but remember, you can get that Last Supper or the party meals and what we do when we meet back up with the ancestors in that particular book called The Egyptian Religion. Now, George Hunt Williamson received the channel of Akhenaten in his book, The Secret Places of the Lion. He received the channel, and it was related, and actually, this particular book, and Akhenaten was related and compared with the Christ. He received the channel in 1958. 1958. He received that channel, and in 1962, a black maid that was working for Gene Dixon, who was the psychic of Gene Dixon, that she paid, this black maid was the high psychic. And what happened was that Gene Dixon paid this woman money and paid the family off for years, and the psychic worked for her, and she took the credit for all the black woman's readings. But what happened about 2 years ago, the black woman died, and the family members came out and bust the story, and she got cold busted that this black woman was doing all the psychic prediction. Gene Dixon, as you know, is being one of the world-renowned greatest psychics. And so she was so-called because, and a lot of her stuff was accurate because the black woman was doing it. Now, it's interesting about this because Gene Dixon did 100 predictions in 1995, and only one of them came true. So obviously she couldn't have been the world-renowned psychic. But this black woman was the one that gave her all of the actual predictions, especially the prediction in her book, My Life Prophecies. My Life Prophecies. In the particular part on the coming of the child of the East. Now, the child of the East was received by the black woman in 1961, 1962, about a boy that was born in the West and taken to the East. But they miscued it to think it was taken to the Middle East, and it was talking about the Christ energy in the United States. Now, as a result of this, he talked about how Akhenaten and Nefertiti came and they brought this child that had on swaddling clothing, which just means poor and humble, to the West. And how this, and she said, but when I looked at the child, I knew the child was not for me. Because in actuality, she understood based on the channels that the black woman gave her, this was a channel of the Christ coming back on the planet. But because it was depicted as a black person, she labeled it and branded it as the Antichrist. And this is the Antichrist that all the world scholars now have been waiting to come back, that they call the man in the turban from the Middle East, this particular Antichrist, that they branded the Antichrist. This is the same person that they've been waiting to come back all these years, that in actuality was a symbolic of the Christ energy, or the Christ figure. But because it was black, remember, she didn't put the prophecy out until 1969. And she held it because it baffled her, because based on what the woman told her, I saw the Christ, and the Christ is black. So based on her racist attitude, she branded it the Antichrist. If you get the book, The Armageddon Script by Peter Lemersher, he will make comment on there on how her devout Catholic bringing up made her, and her little bit of racism made her brand this Christ figure, the Antichrist. He also talks about it in his book, The Great Pyramid Decoded, which is also like a $29 book, but you can get it now on sale at Barnes and Nobles as one of those books on special. And in there they'll talk about also how she branded this particular one. But I also recommend that you get the Armageddon script by Peter Lemesher. He also wrote The Great Pyramid Decoded, but the Armageddon script, and in the back they got a chapter called Seers in Time, but if you can't find it, just look in the index for Gene Dixon, and he talks about how she branded this Christ, the Antichrist. Now, what happened is the reason why Akhenaten had to come back and bring this particular energy back is because Akhenaten had went wrong in his day with a whole lot of things that went down in Egypt. So to redeem himself, he came and also had to redeem himself also. But there's another story. There's another story that is also that is also a counterpart to that particular story, and I thought I Xeroxed some stuff, but I'll see if I can find a little bit in this book. There's another story that is a counterpart to that story, is that Akhenaten. Let's see if I can find this thing. Akhenaten. There's an Egyptian part in Hemmitt about a pharaoh called Nephren-Ka. Now, Nephren-Ka was supposed to be the darker half of Akhenaten. It said that long ago that Nephren-Ka was a pharaoh that lived in Egypt. And this particular pharaoh, he worshipped the brotherhood of Nephren-Ka, worshipped the brotherhood of Nir-Hotep. Anyway, what he worshipped was the brotherhood of the ancient Typhonian tradition, called the ancient Typhonian tradition. And as a result, what happened is Nephren-Ka was run out of Egypt. He was run out of Egypt, but he vowed that he would return one day. But before he ran out of Egypt and all, he took a group of followers with him, and I think they was trying to kill him, and they went underground and trapped themselves in this tomb, and he wrote the history of the universe, or the history of the world, on the walls. And they said it's supposed to be a descendant of his family in North America to this day. The descendants in North America this day. Which in actuality I think is metaphysical, is also bearing witness to the descendants of the pharaohs in North America, and they're talking about the United States of America. Although black people are all over the globe, they're talking about a group of people that will rise up in the end. Even Steve Coker talked about when he's read that several people talking on the Illuminati, and they were saying that we are doomed, and the only people that can stop this Illuminati is the urban black youth in the ghetto, or basically the urban black people. You see, the urban black people and all. And that descendants, they're also just bearing witness to what we are dealing with at this particular time as far as the descendants of that we are. This is also bearing witness, as well as just about anything, especially the Gnostic scripture that always talks about us being in the West and being enslaved in a place that's not our home also. It's almost like scripture after scripture that talks about that, and every bit of that is also apocalyptic. Which I'm recommending that book, The Gnostic Scriptures by Bentley Layton, also too. Get that particular book if you can. All right, let's see what else we can deal with. Like I told you last night, it is key and crucial that you start trying to live your life with less amount of stress and stop thinking of things as being so important. That's the way to neutralize the ego, and try to live your life as if you were a teenager or a person in your early 20s or something like that, without a care in the world. So we're asking people, older you get, the more younger you're supposed to act. Because there's an energy that's in you, and that energy can die out by being too serious. Because the seriousness that we are trained on is European seriousness. That's why if you notice, you can go to the Twa people, and you can go to people in Africa, and they look real humble. Even it's to the point where when the European was in Africa, when he first came to Africa, he said he was a childlike people. It wasn't they were childlike people, it's just that these particular people were on such an advanced level till they didn't have to look at the world around them and act like they have to be so serious around it and be these world conquerors, but be along with the world around them as far as nature-wise, because remember, we created the nature. So the key is, when you see that certain amount of humility with the Africans, not the modern Africans, because that's colonization, but we're talking about the indigenous Africans, and you see that certain amount of humility, that's because that is the humility that you need to neutralize the ego. When you see Harpocrates, which is the baby in Horus with the thumb in his mouth, they say he is very innocent, and for the mere reason that he is very innocent, no harm can come to him. That's the same thing whereas if you can take a doggone baby and go up to a baby or go up to a child and say something condescending and very conceited to a child, and he might not get what you say and might just laugh at you because he's not on that realm. It's only when you go through puberty, you know what I'm saying, and go through a certain level that you start getting to the particular point that everything starts to be so sensitive. So he can come up to you and say something nasty to you and all, and it might throw your whole day off. That's because of the ego. You understand where I'm coming from? So therefore, the more humble you are, the more you are protected. And when I get into the walk-ins and stuff, that's one reason how the walk-ins are able to conquer you, are able to actually walk into you, is based on your ego. Because the ego and that is all one and the same. You see what I'm saying? All one and the same. Okay, let's deal with some other things at this particular time. Okay, like I told you, if you're going to get into the internet, always go and look at if you're going to deal with it, tap into what is called the Leading Edge Research page, or the Leading Edge Research group. And they will have up-to-date messages on there about different things that they're letting out for the first time. As well as one particular article that also solves the discrepancy on whether the white boy was older than 6,000 years or whatever that was. And basically what it's saying is the 6,000 year period, it starts when the white person comes on top of the ground after being a person that had to evolve under underground caverns. And this is the way he was able to fool people, is they didn't see him, because by the time of his creation, he was in the underground caves. And the 6,000 years also is the record on when the European came on top of the ground. And this is what the white boys are saying in the Leading Edge Research group, which destroys, which also bears witness with some discrepancies on when were these people created. We know that they were created earlier than 6,000 years ago, because we also understand that it has a lot to do with Atlantis. But what we were trying to find out is where this 6,000 year comes from, and that's when they climbed on top of the ground, and somebody noticed them even being here was about 6,000 years ago. You see what I'm saying? About 6,000 years ago. In the book of the law, in the first chapter, they will talk about how the European having half the melanin of black people. I think that's in the first chapter of the book of law. They will talk about 418. And then they'll say, but there are those people that have half of that. You see what I'm saying? They're talking about white people also, too, in the book of the law. So that's very interesting. Okay, let's go on with a few other things here so we can go into a good question and answer. A good question and answer period and all. I want to deal with here's my Tarzan notes right here. Shoot, I was looking for them. But what I want to deal with is this particular walk-ins. because the sister asked me to go back into this walk-in thing and all, and so that's what I want to deal with at this particular time. So at this particular time, let me get my book, and I want to get some notes on this walk-ins and see what we can do here. Y'all all right? Okay, let's see here. Well, I can just go ahead and say it out of my mind. I don't have to read everything. The walk-ins are groups of people that in actuality, now, and I said some of this about this last night, that in actuality you know people that you've been knowing all your life, and all of a sudden now these people are acting very strange to you. That is because there's entities now that has come on the earth that knows that the time of the lower realm that they exist on is up. Now, because a person is on a higher realm than you, or in another dimension than you, don't mean that they are on a higher realm, because this realm is so low. It's just the entities that's right above the earth, but still lower than the great cosmic plane that we're trying to go to, or we will be going to shortly. So these particular entities will come in and whisper in your ear and make you think that their thoughts are your own. And basically, it's always antagonistic against some particular person who has a great deal of light, or who a person that has already started the ascent of going to a higher frequencies, which would be the first church taken up. Now, based on a lot of things is not so dramatic as you think of in the Revelation, that first church that was taken up somewhere in the late 80s, early 90s, and that's the Afrocentric group on into its new metaphysical group. So the first original church is the people who was privy to this knowledge when other people out here were still walking around in the 1980s and 1970s and 1960s. So that's the mean. We're talking about a Christ. They say when Christ comes back, the first church will be taken up. That's Christ consciousness. And they're talking about the first wave and the people who will receive the first wave of that consciousness, because this is the church, the physical body, the temple. So the first church they're talking about it will be taken up is us, the ones that's in the consciousness at this particular time. So as a result of the first church being taken up, what has been happening is the demiurge or these particular spirits, these lower spirits, has come in and say, well, we must counter them by taking people that's close to them and around them, and actually, because those particular ones have not made the ascension yet, or gone so far up yet, we are all ascending, but those particular ones are still in the lower part. They will come in and access those particular people that's around you, and those particular people have started acting very funny around you. Some of your spouses, some of your brothers, some of your sisters, some of your best friends. And so now you're losing all kinds of people and having trouble with a lot of people, because more and more on now? Okay, I can see it going? Okay. All right. Let me keep going. You're going to have to just edit that little piece, huh? You're just going to have to edit that little piece, huh?
How long is it on?
Just
yeah. Okay. Well, let's do this. Okay.
I don't know why.
All right.
Yeah, don't turn nothing off because something went on her head. Come and get me. Yeah.
All right. You ready? Now, these particular entities are walking in people. They're getting people in their sleep. Now, how to avoid walk-ins is basically, first of all, humility is the key. They can only stick to you if you have a nasty attitude and you have a certain hatred, especially black hatred. Also, huge egos. Huge egos bring on this demiurge, these walk-in spirits. Huge egos. Also, it's crucial that you know, burn a black candle, clean out your house at particular times, you know. And one thing about these particular demiurge spirits, if one has knowledge of them, they no longer have knowledge power over you. You see what I'm saying? One good way to understand that these particular spirits will be on you, if you try to read and you find yourself reading and then you find yourself about 2 pages, you got to shut the book down. That is because there are spirits that's stopping you from gaining knowledge, because knowledge is light and the light kills them because it's all thought. So, but once you realize this, they no longer have power over you. You see what I'm saying? You no longer have power over you. So basically, you would do the same things that you would do to clean out any negativity, burning incense, candles, keep your hair clean. You know what I'm saying? And different things like that, and also good thoughts, very positive thoughts and all. Very positive thoughts would also do it, as well as just being mindful that this particular time that we are in, this war is a very big psychic war. You see, and that's also going on. So I want to read some a couple other things to you out of the Holy Kabbalah. Now, the Zohar. The Zohar is the written Kabbalah. So if you ever, there's this guy named Gosriam Shulam. I think his name is Gosriam Shulam, something like that. He has a Zohar, a little small book you can buy called the Zohar. That's the written Kabbalah. So I'm reading some stuff out of here that's also pertaining to the upper head part of the black man and black woman. And it says, the holy ancient is hidden and concealed in the wisdom from above, is hidden in the cranium, and is found and not found. Surely in that nothing is revealed except the head alone, because he is the head of all heads, and the wisdom above which is the head, and hidden in it, and called the upper brain and the hidden brain. And the brain is the tranquil and quiet, alone, and knowing but himself. And what it's talking about here is it's talking about the upper head, and it's also bearing witness that this upper brain or hidden brain that they're talking about is nothing but bearing witness to melanin. Now, the reason why a lot of things that you think of that's talking about black magic, that you think is all negative, is based on the mysteries of alchemy and the mysteries of melanin that through the centuries that we used to study to raise up in Egypt, and through the centuries has been turned around to mean something negative. This truth is known, amongst others, to some ancient Egyptians in the time preceding the old eon as Khepra. Khepra, the scarab, is a symbol of the black dot. Khepra. It's a symbol of the black dot. The sun at midnight, which is the sun at midnight. Anytime you hear the sun at midnight, that's talking about melanin. The sun at midnight, or the black hidden sun. Amen, hidden sun. Amen Ra. Amen Ra means melanin. Ra means God, or means the sun, or means light. Amen Ra, the hidden sun, is in you. Ab also means the black sun. Ab Ra, the black sun. Abraham, which means the black son. Abraham. The sons and daughters of Abraham. Ab comes from the word cabdit, or had it, or cabdit, also it comes from the word, also that particular word, had it, which I was talking about the black dot. Also you get the word Jack, Cat, Takshidi, Jack, Jock, Jacob, Jacob, which is also talking about the black body. Abraham is Abraham, which means the black dot. Sons and daughters of the black dot. Not no one damn man or no Jewish race. You see what I'm saying? One man. Abraham, which means Ab is another word for son. Ham means black. Cam is black. Sam which means black. Sun, Sam's son, black son, Samson, hidden son. You see what I'm saying? Anytime these are words, Sam, Samitic, which means black. You see what I'm saying? They say Semi, but it's Samitic, Sam's son. Sam is another word for Cam, Ham. You see, all of that. Ram. Ram, which means the black one. The ram-headed almond. Lamb. Woolly head. All that is indications and alchemical components of melanin. Has nothing to do with the physical manifestation of some man and some shepherd man that had all these damn children. So, Kepra, the midnight sun, the sun at midnight, as centuries passed, this knowledge gradually became lost, openly politically obscured, and in the place, ignorant superstitions, craven fear, even outright terror of the dark arose. So black magic, which was the alchemy, black magicians, which means the Egyptian priests, became negative. It was no longer recognized as it is in its original yin-yang symbol, the phenomenon of darkness and light. Yin and yang must out of necessity coexist to be completely interdependent. Indeed, must be the condition that spring forth from one another, as the conditions thereby being any perception at all. Instead, by contrast, they both became frozen fixed principles, non-fluid, of opposition, subjectively imagine absolute concepts of good and evil, locked in eternal duel of good wins on the day of judgment. That's all moralism. But what they were talking about is the mistress of melanin, which is alchemy, became obscured into black magic and all of this particular things. You see what I'm saying? And all of these particular things. Also in alchemy, we talk about in alchemy, the mysteries of antiquity no longer exist. But in the place of the mysteries of alchemy, which teaches the great cranium, which is also a word that's talking about cranium, the picture language of the Hermetic symbolism. It is the rebirth of water and spirit, closely connected with which this ancient but publicly never answered. Now, how can these things be? Can human beings enter the second time into the mother's womb, be born? How can a person be born again? Now, born again has nothing to do with you going to get a doggone religion and being saved. Being saved means you have a black dot, which is called the Christ, anointed one. And you are being saved by the black dot, Christ. Christ saves. Christ, a Christos, which is inside of you, saves you. The seed saves you. That what my father did not plant cannot be plucked up. He planted the seed, and the seed is the black dot which saves you. You see, being saved, you are born saved because you have the seed in you, the black melanated seed, which is the anointed with olive oil, the black and green. Olives are black and green. Melanin is black and the green form of the plant life. Olive oil. Oil is crude oil. Crude oil is carbon. Carbon is the basis in the substance of melanin. Melanin is the byproduct of carbon. 6 protons, 6 neutrons, 6 electrons, which is carbon. Which is carbon. So, the human being can not only but must be born again, but led back into the primal materia, which is melanin. Primal materia is the alchemy term for melanin, out of which he comes forth according to his astro nature. So if they're talking about your astro nature, it ain't got a damn thing to do with moralism. It's based on your nature, the seed that your father planted or your mother planted. The father comes from the mother. There's a mother and a father. The father is only a reflection of the mother in her masculine phase. It's only the mother. You see. But your astral nature, Your nature, Honorable Elijah Muhammad say their nature is that of evil. So your nature is that of good, and it's based on nature, has nothing to do with moralism whatsoever. It was only became moralism because of a person lacking the nature of the divine Christ. Before the Son of Man can be exalted, he must be humbled. That's the ego. Before he can ascend to heaven, he must walk 3 days in hell. That's Matthew chapter 12, verse 20. This is the condition of the acromeal blackness, melanin. You see? You can't descend into heaven until you have the acromeal blackness, melanin, whose central darkness, as replied through, extends 3 days and nights, and through the total blackness for 40 days. Even Jesus remained 40 days until his resurrection, after his resurrection on earth, until he ascended into heaven. Therefore, you must go through the gates of darkness to obtain the paradise of white light and bright. You see what I'm saying? And it's all alchemy and talking about melanin. So therefore, all black people will go to the hereafter because we have the seed. And it has nothing to do with how you behave, because if we behaved, we would never get anywhere.